Okay, so something extremely interesting. I don't know how well you might be able to see this, but if you look up at the alternator, there is definitely a bolt missing that was not missing before. I think we are gonna just assess everything. Maybe we don't have to remove the alternator. Maybe the alternator hasn't entirely failed, and I'd prefer to be able to reach in from above. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the intake manifold and see what we're working with. Okay, that might be a problem. The bolt holding the alternator in backed on out. Maybe the alternator isn't bad. Maybe it just got misadjusted somehow. Okay, so I've put in some work securing the alternator back in position. I torqued down the lower alternator bolt pretty tight. It is tighter than it was before. And I made sure this armature here is pretty tight as well. Maybe the vibration moved it. I don't know what caused it to move in the first place. Maybe I just didn't install it very well when I first put it in the car. Well, I guess I'll put the intake manifold back on and see if the car is charging and if we've still got that horrendous alternator belt squeal. We're back! All right, we're back with a fuel leak over at the secondary injectors yet again. My goodness. Okay, well, I'm relieved I don't have to actually replace the alternator. That's a huge win, and that expedites things a bit. So let's just be happy about the W and check it off the board. So lucky for me, Jason Drew.
Hey, my name is Jason. This is my 1997 Eclipse GST converted to a GSX.
Saw my track video where I was talking about the lack of confidence I had in my brakes.
I mean, they're decent brakes. I mean, they're all right. You can see they're drilled and slotted, but they feel sketchy. When I get above 100 miles an hour, I'm nervous to hold it. I don't want to wait until the braking zone. I'm not even waiting until the braking zone to hit the brakes.
And he offered me a pretty good deal on his old Big Brake Kit. It's a Baer Big Brake Kit, and I am really excited to install this. Gotta get down to the wheel hub on this, so the spacers are gonna have to come off. Nope, no, it's not too thick. Now to get the brakes all the way off. Just for clear contrast, these are gonna be pretty big in comparison to what I've currently got. It's very much appreciated, Jason. These probably could have benefit from hub-centric rings. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not get too excited quite yet. Kind of worked. Hub-centric ring. Oh my goodness, come on. Dude, can't strip everything I touch. Now I'm just struggling a bit to disconnect the brake line back here. It's either jammed or I can't figure out how to release it the way it's actually meant to be released. I just keep blasting it with some PB blaster, hoping that maybe the threads are just a little seized and I can loosen them up enough for my 10 mil to start working. All right, I ended up going to 5 different stores looking for a flared nut wrench so I can hopefully now properly remove this brake line. Now using a regular wrench to get it the rest of the way out, and it is dripping quite a bit of brake fluid. I'm going to be spraying quite a bit of brake clean down here when I'm done with this. There we go. This is no joke. That is on there. Solid on there. Okay, there we go. You want it to be able to mate up right there. That's going to be the general idea. Well, it may have taken me a little longer than I would have liked, but we got the Baer Big Brake Kit installed. Yeah, let's check it off the board. So I think we're skipping down to this one, fixing the window circuit, because after I did the Kickly trigger last year, for some reason my Demon car decided for the windows to stop working again. And it's insufferable. I mean, obviously it's pretty much summer now. You want the windows down most of the time, but what if it rains or something like that? What if I'm at the drag strip and they want me to roll up the window? That's a problem that I've got to be able to handle. And I've also got other stuff in order that I need to do, because this car can't have the fender painted a different color than the rest of the car, and the top of it looking as rough as it does. Needs to be painted, and chances are Lane would prefer to paint a car in which he could roll the windows up. So last time I had this problem, it ended up being some connector that just came loose. What are the odds that it ends up being that simple a second time? Probably considerably low, but we can hope, right? I may have to use a multimeter to test this. Wow, I may have found the issue. Oh, now that wire's getting feedback. I'm now checking the black and red wire as I'm realizing it could be ignition 2. Black and white wire is ignition 1, black and red is apparently ignition 2. Absolutely nothing. Confirmation white to black was working before, right? Yep, negative 12. Aha! You're not working. You're not working at all. That seems to be what the issue is. Ignition 1. I'm getting it. Ignition 2, nothing. It would never activate.
Having discovered a faulty wire feeding from the ignition switch, I went ahead and did a bit of rewiring to bypass it, feeling pretty proud of myself for solving the issue.
Or not. Windows still aren't working. Door locks work. Camilla confused. Very confusing. Look, it's a mistake anyone could have made. I accidentally connected the wire, the yellow wire that's not feeding any power, back to this when I meant for it to be the black and red wire, which actually goes to those other accessories I needed. Now it's not long enough to reach where I made this other solder point. But it's not the end of the world. I have a plan. Gotta give myself a little more slack on these. Then I'm going to give myself more wire, bare wire to work with on the black and red. And then black and red, I want it to siphon off white and black right here, right here. There we go. I don't like making a mess of wiring jobs. I try and keep it as clean as possible. Sometimes you end up in situations where you have to improvise after you did a bad job improvising. That has good contact, and I can heat tape it, and, well, not heat tape, I can electrical tape it, and I'll also solder it to make sure the connection is strong, as long as I verify this actually works. It's messy, but we'll see if it's functional. I actually do feel good about this. Still no. Still no. Wow. Was I really all for nothing? Let's look at the multimeter. Negative 12 as it should be. And then the top, negative 12. What about the yellow wire that I presumed wasn't hot? Yeah, that wire's not working. But those other, that ignition 2 wire on the car at least, is getting the same 12 volts. that ignition 1 is getting. I could have more than one problem that caused it to fail in the first place, and I have to track down what that is, but it still doesn't necessarily explain my issue. Car's not beeping to whine at me for the doors, and the windows still don't work. At least the door lock still works. I'm confused. Maybe it's possible that there was an electrical short that occurred at one point and it knocked out the fuses on the electronics. If that is the case, this could be kind of difficult to fix, and I could risk blowing everything on the ignition 1 circuit as well as the ignition 2 circuit, or whatever order it's all in. What I do know is that the red and black wire feeds the accessories I'm trying to activate was not getting power when it was supposed to, and I think it's because the yellow wire it was going to, the push to start box, that failed, but maybe the whole circuit or something essential on it failed with it when it did. I was hoping this wouldn't be so brutal to troubleshoot, but of course I know better than to expect anything less than a very difficult time trying to troubleshoot what seems like it would be a simple problem. So I have a working theory. It does seem that the wire powering ignition 2, was it? I think? That wasn't getting power because the push to start box, the wire that's supposed to be supplying ignition 2 power, failed. I bypassed that by supplying it power from ignition 1 so they come on at the same time. However, even though I have power to the accessories I'm trying to activate, maybe there was some short circuit that damaged the ETAX ECU. And I've been through stuff with the ETAX ECU before, which is why I have this. This is the fuse box that goes under the kick panel, and this is the ETAX ECU. Probably won't come off easy because couldn't have that, could we? But I want to confirm how it comes off before I go trying to take off the one that's currently on there. So there'll be a plug into the back of it that I have to remove, and it's up there like that. So of course the plug is facing a way that's going to be difficult for me to reach back there, but it seems to pull straight off. See, even off the car this is actually rather difficult. There we go. Can I remove the ETAX ECU in the car and potentially swap it for this? And at the same time, maybe this plug that's facing away from me a bit in the fray, maybe that's a little loose and that's why things aren't getting power. Curious, isn't it? Let's find out. So, I managed to somehow remove the ETAX off the back of current fuse box. This is troubleshooting. We're going to just see if it worked. No beeping or anything, and no response from the windows. Another swing and a miss. It's starting to feel really ridiculous. So the factory service manual says to check the power window relay, which is the, oh crap, I'm not gonna be able to see this, upper one and up here. Alright, I may not have another one of these fuses laying around, but there was one similar to it sitting down into the left that I just moved into the power window position, because we might as well check and see if this would make it work. No dice. Can't say I'm super shocked. Just so confused. Alright, I am officially sick of this game and not interested in playing it anymore. So what I'm going to attempt to do is rewire the power window switch. I want to access this without actually going to the door. I'm going to actually hijack where it connects to the fuse box and connect it to my PDM. I'm going to give it power from my power distribution module so that it can operate independently of whatever failed circuit isn't working right now. So let's try it that way. Go in this wire back there. Actually, I'll push it from the passenger side instead. Simplify things for myself a little bit easier to reach since I have it disassembled on the other side. Now I just need this side for this to enter that loom I already have here and go into the PDM. Now I'm figuring out which output I should use. Output 11, 15 amps should be enough for power windows, I think. That small little window motor. Alright, so I think I am going to use this output 11, but I should use a 25 amp output instead of a 15. Right now, I don't know where my 25 amp pins are because we recently revamped the garage, but I'm going to order new ones and swap this, or maybe I'll get lucky and find my 25 amp pins. I am having to extend the wire just a little bit, just for good measure. Clamp on, and you're tight. Okay, this connects well. I'll heat shrink that once we know for sure this works. Now I can't film this part, there's not enough room, but I'm gonna go under and clip the wires, the red and white wires, and figure out which one triggers the power windows. Alright, need power for this part. Give me power. Alright, so now I'm connected to the PMU16 power windows, and again I'll be changing this to a 25 amp output if I get confirmation that this works. It should work if it's correctly connected already. Power windows, it says under current. Okay, it figures that that one wasn't the correct wire, at least presumably. Gonna have to strip the other red and white wire and see if that one was it. And it's reading red, it's faulting. Something's wrong with it, but the presumption is maybe that wire is the wire that's being fed from the fuse box, and so I'm sending current in the wrong direction. I want to send it to the window switch. So I'm gonna save this, make permanent, go ahead and turn off the car. I'm gonna pop the main fuse and try the other wiring configuration and see if we still get an error. Power windows, it says under current. It's still red. Voltage is 12 volts. Figures. Nothing. I thought I was being clever, but I've just done the thing where I hacked up more wires, probably unnecessarily. Gotta figure out this issue, man. So I actually turned off the power window switch and it still is saying under current. So now I'm hypothesizing maybe the wires that I was assuming were our candidates weren't the correct wires at all. I must be receiving power from the car right now. So just thinking about how a relay like that works. Maybe they were both 12 volt switches. One is the power to the relay and the other is the trigger wire. Maybe that's the way that it was set up. Well, no, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, either way, my hypothesis is both of those wires were feeding from somewhere and neither of them were feeding to the power windows. So I am going to do something that's worked for me in the past, and I'm going to disregard color, and I think I'm going to try the other two wires that were down there as well, because I've already ruined that relay. I'd have to go out of my way to try and fix it, and I don't plan to do that. So I might as well just keep going with the other two wires, despite the fact they're not the colors I was expecting to be working with, and see if it happens to respond. Alright, now we're trying the yellow and blue wire. pretty much the same error, except when I turn it off, now there's no voltage flowing through it. Only one more to try. Alright, so now we've got to go into the black and blue wire. Let's see what it does now. It just says off. That's a new development. It only says off. Now, what if I turn it on? It says undercurrent. What? I fixed it. You're kidding. I do want these rolled up right now, so I'll keep them rolled up. I can't believe that worked. Wow. Okay. It's going between active and undercurrent. Confused about that. They work. I want to look into this a bit more, but I kind of figured it out. I'm going to clean up that mess and then come back and review and talk about where I think we currently stand. Okay, real quick. I actually just changed the min current to 0. Now we can just look at the load. How much load is it putting on when I'm moving this? 30%. That's not going to hurt it. Oh, right. Okay, I saw 100 there. I'm gonna put this over here so I can look at the load on the other side. All right, power window load. Oh. Okay, I'm going up. Okay, so if I try and force it, it goes way over its load, right? 14%, pushes against it 117. I don't want it to ever do over 100%, so I really do need to change this to a 25 amp switch. But anyway, yeah, now I'm gonna clean up and make sure we're solid. I'm so stoked. I can't believe I figured it out. Let's go. All right, so just as a contingency, if there is something on this circuit that did in fact short circuit everything on it, I don't want it to be connected to my working circuits. So that connection I made before, I'm gonna sever. I'm gonna heat shrink this off, the ignition 2 wire. I have all my essential functions being run by the standalone anyway, and if there are any other accessories I need to hijack, I will do so using my PDM. So, all right, one last time with everything tucked away to make sure it's working properly. That's something else to check off the board.
I got to spraying PB Blaster on the manifold to try and clear up the rust I accidentally caused. And I played with some hood louvers I bought, but I really can't bring myself to cut up my hood.
It seems that penetrating fluid did a shockingly efficient job getting rid of most of the rust. It's still a little brown, but most of the ugly stuff, it's not sticking out like a sore thumb as it was before. That really is much better. Much better. I can live with that. Maybe I'll do another treatment later, but that works for me. I'd call that one done. I didn't expect to actually hit all of these, except that one. I was kind of not expecting to hit that one. But we are making good progress. I switched the outputs at the PDM. I found my 25 amp output terminals, so the window is now on a sufficient circuit. Well, it's running off of a sufficient fuse from the PDM. And I've moved on to my next project, which is the screen. The screen that I'm gonna be using for my intake. So I could have gone smaller, but I got 4-inch aluminum tubing. The compressor housing of the red is actually 3.25 inches. And I dug through what I had and found this. I was previously running a compatible coupler going to the air filter that I used to run. Goal is, of course, protect the turbine housing, but also to make my sealed catch can setup functional again. I'm gonna have to plumb this pipe with a barb fitting for a hose going to the catch can, so it'll suck the oil out of the crankcase. That's going all the way around. It's got to be wider, though. This just isn't going to go all the way over. Oh, see, that's what we want. All the way on. I guess this won't reach. And you know what? Maybe this doesn't actually need... Yeah, this thing may not actually need one, because it's not that much suction. Just need one on this side. Okay, time for a test fit real quick. I think it is going on. Let me just tighten this. And now I've got a protective screen over the inlet of the FP Red. Another one checked off the board. So we're super close to being done with this list.